Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around various aspects of COVID-19. We talk about three crises: the health, financial, and inequality crisis. And we are always looking for suggestions, topics, and guests. So please email me, sree@sree.net. Today is episode 190. We've been on the air for 190 straight days, and we are so honored that we have a return guest. Nikki Grimes returns. She is at Nikki Grimes 9, poet and author of 60 plus books. I think we have to make that 70 plus books. Her new picture book, Kamala Harris, Rooted in Justice. And our upcoming book is Legacy, Women Poets of the Harlem Renaissance. She's the 2017 Children's Legacy Award winner and the Coretta Scott King Award for Bronx Masquerade, among her many, many awards. You're going to meet her in just a minute. Please tag your friends right now. Please share this. We'd love as many people around the world to watch and learn about Nikki, about her work, and about this new book about Kamala Harris. How perfectly timed is that? You're going to meet her in just a minute. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of our daily global show family. A big thanks to everyone who has been here, who's watched us, who has shared this. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please hit share right now so your friends and family can join us. In our first 175 episodes, we've had 1 million plus viewers, 129 million social impressions, 316 guests, 185 of them women from 63 cities and 17 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. Our archives are on youtube.com/Sreenet, and we are live on Scroll Global and Scroll.in. We're able to do this because of our sponsors, and we'll thank them in just a couple of minutes. And before that, we also want to thank our producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31, and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. You'll meet Rose in just a few minutes as well. So are you ready to talk poetry? Are you ready to talk about books? Are you ready to talk about writing and to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris? I am, and we have Nikki Grimes with us, and we're so excited. Let me say hello to Nikki.
Hello, good to see you again.
Great to see you. Thank you for being here. You were here for episode 46. Today's episode 190. Wow. I just cannot imagine how it feels like yesterday in some ways and feels like 2 years ago.
I know. Another lifetime.
Thank you for coming back. We're so grateful. But my first question to you is the same I asked you 145 days ago. How are you? Where are you? And how's your family and friends, your circles? How have they been handling the virus?
Oh my gosh! Well, the many viruses, as it were. But I'm mostly good. I have my bad days like everybody else, but I mostly keep myself pretty busy, and I kind of keep my head in my work. One of the great things about being home for this period of time is I'm getting tons of writing done, much more than I usually do because I'm usually on the road and haven't been for obvious reasons. So I'm enjoying writing a lot of new work. So it's been good.
You're someone who has always been so prolific. We have to correct our card that said 60 plus books. I think it's like 76, something like that.
Something like that.
So I want to learn your secrets. So I hope you'll share at least some. How are you prolific in this manner? We know, of course, they're not all full-length novels, but they're still, each one is a work of art. Each one is creative. Each one takes effort. You pour your soul into all of them. How do you do it?
I can't not do it. I mean, I have ideas that have gone back years and years. It takes me a while sometimes to get to them. And so I always feel like I'm catching up, like I'm just getting started. And I can never get to that new thing, fast enough. And as soon as I've gotten through it, and I have like a day when I'm excited, oh, I got that done. And then the next day I'm like, okay, what's next? I start on whatever that next item is, and that keeps me going. I keep myself challenged. I think that's part of it for me, is that I'm constantly doing something new, something I haven't tried before. I walk into my fear. I love projects that scare me, that I'm not sure I can pull off, because those are the ones that are most satisfying in the end when I have. So as long as I keep myself challenged, I'm always inspired to keep working.
That is just, I mean, that's inspiring to me, and I know it's inspiring to a lot of people. I'm going to bring Rose Horowitz on in just a minute, one of my producers who knows you well and has interviewed you. What have you learned about yourself during this pandemic?
What have I learned about myself? That I can adapt. I'm definitely adaptable. I've had to learn all kinds of new skills through this time. I've never considered myself any kind of, tech person, but I have grown in those areas because I've needed to rely on technology. And so I pushed myself to try new things, in my work, to try new approaches to, how do you do a virtual panel or a keynote, or I've even done, a virtual poetry slam with the school at Columbia University. Never thought I'd do anything like that before. So I just found out I really am flexible, adaptable. I can pivot. And at this point in time, that's a really useful skill.
It really is, and we congratulate you on that. And what did you learn about America in this process?
Oh, that she has a long way to go, for sure. It's been a very scary time for all of us, I suppose. In some ways, there are groups that have pulled together. I know my church family has been really very strong and supportive, and we found ways to connect and to interact and engage throughout this time. But there are other groups that have just sort of splintered, and I worry about us. But at the same time, I see so many people who are passionate about justice and passionate about democracy, and people who are waking up for the first time, who are rolling up their sleeves and seem ready to do the necessary work that we have to do to grow as a nation. And so I'm encouraged by that, especially among young people, to see that begin to happen. So on balance, I'm still hopeful. I always lean toward hope.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about this book, and how long it was in the works, and what will we learn from Kamala Harris, rooted in justice?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, a little background. In 2008, I was approached by Justin Chanda at Simon & Schuster, who wanted to know if I would do a book about then Senator Barack Obama. And he was at that time running for the Democratic nomination, which I thought would never happen. But the trajectory of his career was such that he was an exciting person to watch. Justin felt this is somebody to watch no matter what happens. It's worth telling his story. And then, of course, we know he did get the nomination. He did become president. And I was able to gut and renovate my kitchen as a result of that book. So I'm really glad I did that book. But I had a very ridiculously short timeline to produce it, because I wanted it to come out on the day of the Democratic National Convention. And I had a total of 3 months to research and write this book. Now, you need to understand that I could spend 3 months just doing research on a project, and even more. And I usually have a few different ideas about how to approach a subject, and I'll generally write up a couple of them just to figure out which one is going to work the best. In this scenario, however, there was no time for that. I had to just come up with an idea and run with it and pray to God that it worked. So I came to the end of it and it was successful, but I said, never again. I will never do a fast book. No way, Jose. Fast forward to March 2019. Justin comes to me and he says, we've been wanting to do a book on Kamala Harris. And I was like, oh yeah, she's a really interesting character. And I'm thinking about the Obama book. And I was like, thank you very much. And I laughed and said, no. Obviously, I changed my mind, but not before negotiating a much more reasonable timeline. So then I got to work on it. So it was actually in the works from last March. And no one knew what at that time. I think she'd thrown her hat in the ring for the presidential spot. She ended up dropping out. In fact, by the time I was coming to the end of the book, I was like, well, I'm going to have to incorporate the fact that she's dropped out of the race, which I did. And no one knew what was going to happen with the VP spot. I didn't really hold out hope that that was really going to happen. I knew the book would do well. People would be interested in her in general. But of course, once she was named as VP, it just blew up. So I thought, great, I get to renovate another room.
Every 4 years you can do that. So
But yeah, I find her fascinating in so many ways. Her family really prepared her. Her life prepared her for a life of service, of public service. She really was sort of weaned on the civil rights movement. She was, in a stroller when her parents were out demonstrating for civil rights and going to listen to Martin Luther King Jr. and, going to march against apartheid. She was right there in the mix. So she was picking up these ideas as a toddler about justice and what that was, and hearing those words. And one of the funniest things for me in her earlier story is one day they're out and she's being really fussy, and her mom is like, what do you want? And Kamala says, freedom. Because she had heard this chant so often of people saying, what do we want? Freedom. When do we want it now? So that came to her in that moment, and her mother just cracked up. And there were, she comes from a generation or from a family line of people who were active. Her grandfather was involved in the independence movement in India, and her grandmother was involved in women's rights issues in India. So she comes from that kind of stuff. Her grandmother, and then her own parents. So it's really, you see that trajectory was already planned out for her, that this would be something she would be called to. When she was in Montreal, her mother got a job in Montreal, and so she was starting middle school, and so they were relocated there, which, among other things, necessitated her learning French. Just thrown into the system. Mother signed she and her sister Maya up for a French school, and they had to learn French on the spot in order to go to school. But she brought that whole idea of fairness with her, and there was an occasion when she and her sister marched in front of their apartment with picket signs because children weren't allowed to play soccer on the lawn, and they didn't think that was fair. And so they went out and they marched and actually got the rule changed. So yeah, she was really primed for the life that she's living now, for the work that she's doing now.
That is just great to know about those stories. Just before I bring Rose on, I just want to share some of the folks who are watching. Jonathan Borstein has watched 190 episodes in a row, including yours back then and today. He's in the East Village. Paula Kiger is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. And Charles and Mary Cunnin Carroll are watching from New Jersey. They're not just avid viewers and wonderful people. They're also sponsors of the show. So we like it when our sponsors watch. So thank you. He's the author of a wonderful book called The Inventor in You. And Pradnya says, oh boy, another book to buy. Thanks. Charles says, you wrote so many books. What is the average time you spent to write each of your books?
Oh, it's so different. I have picture books that, took a few months. I have other ones that took a couple of years. Of course, the record at this point is my memoir, Ordinary Hazards, which I worked on off and on for 39 years. So how about that for a gestation period?
You started your memoirs at 3? That's very unusual.
Not at 3, no. But I kept coming back. I would work on it. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. So the first iteration was a collection of short stories. And then I put them away, forgot about it. And periodically my agent would say, so what's happening with that memoir? Or a friend would say, what's happening with the memoir? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I need to get back to that. And then I'd do an iteration where it was a collection of personal essays. And then I put it away and I forgot about it again for, years. And then I came at it again and I did a collection of poems, but it wasn't the final form that Ordinary Hazards took. So in each iteration, it was developing, the story was developing, the idea was developing. And then when I finally came back to it a couple of years ago, I started to have a clearer vision of how I would tell the story, what part of the story I would tell, how I would, frame it. So yeah.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to let you catch your breath for a minute. We're going to thank our sponsors and bring on Rose Horowitz, our producer. So we'll be right back to you, Nikki. Thank you so much, folks. You're listening to a conversation with the poet and writer Nikki Grimes, author of more than 70 books, including her new book on Kamala Harris. It's a book aimed at young readers, and you'll want to get it. It's called Rooted in Justice. Kamala Harris, Rooted in Justice. So let's thank our sponsors who make this show and all our shows possible. Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. Get 20% off with the code SREE. We also want to thank Charles and Cunnin Carroll, the author of A Step-by-Step Guide to Your First Invention by Charles Cunnin Carroll, developer of more than 80 patents. He's competing right there with Nikki on books versus patents. We should have a conversation about what's similar and dissimilar in that process. At Inventor Charles, guide to invention.com. We also want to thank our friends at Muckrack Academy for fundamentals of social media, a free on-demand certification course that you can take today. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Here are just some of the 1,000+ people who have printed out their certificates and shown it to us. We love seeing this, all these great compliments for the course. It's free, mrac.co/social, and additional support for this show provided by please check out hotstar.com/US. And we want to thank She's on Call, wonderful show that Rose also helps produce. And it's a show that runs every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. This past Sunday, we had a cardiologist and a pulmonologist with our 2 surgeons, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. Please check it out and follow them on Facebook and Twitter at She's on Call. And then finally, tomorrow morning, we have an incredible show we're putting together. I'm honored to be one of the producers of my friend Jamie Metzel's show, Rise or Fall Together, the One Shared World Interdependence Summit, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern Time, Thursday, September 17th. Register now, oneshare.world. Among the speakers, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, and also Kiran Majumdar-Shah, wonderful expert and executive from India. And we also have Michelle Williams, the Dean of Faculty at the Harvard School of Public Health, and so many other amazing people, as you can see on the screen. It's a free conference that you can sign up for. And I forgot to mention, Dr. Tedros will be here, the Director General of the World Health Organization. All of it free at oneshare.world. And I'm honored that our team at Digimentors puts that all together. And so please check out our work and email me, Sree@Sree.net, if we can help you with your events. We do events for 50 people and 100,000 people. Somewhere in between is your conference, and we'd love to help you with that. So let me bring on stage right now our friend Rose Horowitz, who's one of our producers. Hi, Rose.
Hi.
Rose is a journalist and the creator of the hashtag Women to Follow, which we want everyone to follow, and check out all the great work there. And Rose, 190 days. Can you believe it?
We're almost at 200, 10 more days.
Two Saturdays from now, it'll be epic. We don't know what we can do to top Nikki Grimes tonight, but we are excited to try. Let's bring Nikki back. You're going to take over from here. You're the poet. You're the writer, to spend time with Nikki and talk to her. And please ask her, if you can, about also what's happening with those horrific fires out in California and how she's doing as well. So I'll step out and bring Nikki on. And thank you very much, Rose.
Thank you.
Hi, Rose.
Hi, Nikki. So great to have you again. So graciously gracious of you to join us again. But you yes, we had to bring you on twice. So so I've been seeing how prolific you are, and you mentioned that you have found it hard to read at this time with everything going on. So I'm just curious, why do you think it's been easier for you to write so much?
I haven't got a clue, because I have author friends who are having a difficult time writing, but they're reading. So with me, it's sort of flipped. Once I sort of get into the groove of whatever I'm working on, I get in the zone, and I just keep going, and kind of nothing breaks that, as long as it's, I have the quiet that I need to concentrate. But that just is not working for reading for some reason. So I'm glad I'm able to return to projects or begin projects that I've been wanting to do for years and just never had time to do, and also exploring new areas. I've been wanting, for instance, to get deeper into writing books for children, specifically for Black children, about engagement with nature, because we don't see that in our books. And just getting away from the single story, which posits that all Black people live in urban areas. We're all from the inner city, and we have, we don't have anything to do with the natural environment. Of course, none of that's true. We have people who are, on ranches and farms and in coal mining country and in the desert and, doing rodeos. I mean, just sort of the whole gamut, but we don't see that represented in the books. And so and I love nature. I'm a gardener. I've always loved nature. And so I wanted to see more books that sort of explored that. So I've been doing that, writing those kinds of stories, and some of them are now in production. And I had a collection of poetry for adults that I've been writing for years. I write poems to accompany the sermons. I'm a poet laureate at my church, and so I've been doing that for quite a while. And people always ask me for the poems after. Oh, can I get a copy? Can I get a copy? So I finally put together a compilation of those, and found a publisher who's excited about it. So that's in production now. So it's been great to just revisit some of those old half-buried dream projects, to pull them out and say, hey, I'm home, let me do this now. Who knows when I'm going to have this much time again. So that's definitely been a plus. Definitely been a plus. And I'm really excited about Legacy.
I'm so excited to see that. I think our last time you spoke, I had asked you what poets in particular influenced you, and you spoke about these poets. So I think it's so exciting that you're writing this book about them. So tell us what poets you're writing about and when this book is available.
It's coming out in January. Oh my gosh, there are so many poets. Of course, I'm revisiting Georgia Douglas Johnson and Gwendolyn Bennett, who I was familiar with, but I also learned about new to me poets, Clarissa Scott Delaney, Anne Spencer, who wrote a lot about nature, Lucy Ariel Williams. The whole list isn't here, but it's a long list. I knew that there would be that there had to be more women poets from that period than I was hearing about and reading about. And when I started doing the research, I was hoping to maybe find, 10, 15. I found probably closer to 50. So I was really excited, and I couldn't include them all in this one book. So I feel like I'm just getting started, but it was exciting. And also in the process of researching the poems for this particular book, I discovered that in doing the biographies, I discovered that there were several of these poets who wrote for children. One, in fact, who's credited for having the first body of work focused on children's literature. And this is Effie Lee Newsome, who was responsible for starting the children's column in Crisis magazine back in the day. So that was really great. And so then, this is what happens in research. You get the answers to one thing, but you also find out things that send you down a rabbit hole. And so I was like, oh, they wrote for children? What did they write for children? And then I go looking for that, and I found some things on microfiche, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let's get back to the book that you're supposed to be writing.
Well, that's what makes you a good writer, of course,
Exactly.
You have to be curious.
I'll come back to that later.
And are the poems, or do you have examples of the poems by these writers?
I do. And again, this is a collection, like One Last Word, of golden shovel poems. I don't know if I explained what those were. It's a new form of poetry, created originally by poet Terrence Hayes, which he created for a collection to honor the work of Gwendolyn Brooks. And I was fortunate to be one of the poets that contributed to that collection. So in the process of doing that, I learned this form where you borrow one or more lines from an existing poem and you arrange them in the right column one by one, and then you write a new line that ends in each of those words so that you end up with a brand new poem. That'll feature that line. And I just love that. So that's what I did with these. And one of the poems I worked with is Heritage by May V. Cowdery. This is a short one. It is a blessed heritage to wear pain, a bright smile on our lips. Our dark fathers gave us the gift of shedding sorrow in a song. And I took that last 3 lines to write a poem titled Before. Before we were women, we were our daddy's daughters, the dark princesses who stole our father's hearts. A single story says they gave us little except disappointment, but ask us. Ask me, and I'll chronicle the currency of love Dad splurged on me. The gift of yes, you can, and modeling dignity in the face of vile attacks on his manhood without ever shedding his humanity or surrendering to sorrow. Like many dark fathers, he'd reclaim his soul in the sweet strains of music, a lesson we daughters learned. Siphon sadness through a song.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful, very powerful too. Thank you.
That was fun. Yeah. And then back to the nature theme. I borrowed a couple of lines from a poem called Earth, I Thank You by Anne Spencer. Earth, I thank you for the pleasure of your language. You've had a hard time bringing it to me, from the ground to grunt through the noun, to all the way feeling, seeing, smelling, touching, awareness.
Hi, folks. We might be having some issue with Nikki's connection, so we'll bring her back as soon as we see her there. She knows to come back online. Well, what a great conversation you're having, Rose.
Yeah, no, she's it's great to hear. You know, it's always wonderful to hear the poet. You know, it's another thing. You know, it's one thing to read them, to read a poet, but to hear the poets, you know, speak the words. It's great. It's a treat.
Yeah. And she has such wonderful use of language. Can you talk? Did you understand the new kind of poetry she was talking about?
I wasn't familiar with that. I've done.
To know that there are still new kinds of poetry being written.
I mean, I know there's a form called a stento, where you take a line from different poets and you combine them, and it becomes, you know,
back. By the way, she's back. So we'll go.
Okay.
We'll go to her.
Okay. All right. So I'll start that one again. Sweet sister. Clay creatures, we forget our sisterhood with earth, as if we could survive without her nourishment. I know better, but did I always? I thank her now. Sink your teeth into a peach, and so will you. Imagine a world without rosemary or rose, even for a moment. Where would the flavor or the fragrance be? How we'd miss the quiet pleasure earth brings to nose and tongue, of which we are not worthy. Earth, your generosity deserves to be met with love's language.
Right. Using some classic language from, you know, nature and love poems in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the fun and also challenging aspects of doing Golden Shovel is you are limited to the words that you choose from that original poem. Mm-hmm. And since the poems were written at a different time and language was used in a different way, it's finding ways to bridge some of that language, which is in some cases arcane, and bringing that into today's vernacular.
So it's a fun experiment then.
Yes.
And it probably yields results that you can't anticipate. You know.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I remember when I was working on One Last Word, I chose a poem that had the word chromatique in it. And I was like, great, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? And I ended up using it as the name of a hair salon. I had to come up with some way to get it in there. So I was like, yes.
And what do you hope this book, how will this advance, you know, these poets in the lives of young people?
Well, both young and even older readers, for that matter, who are not familiar with many of the women of that, writers of that period, will become aware of them, being inspired by them. And these women have just interesting backgrounds. I mean, some of them were among the first Black women to earn a PhD. These were teachers, these were librarians, these were directors of cultural institutes. They were editors of some of the very journals that featured the male poets that we do know, County Cullen, Langston Hughes, Lawrence Dunbar, Paul Lawrence Dunbar. In fact, his first wife is one of the poets in this collection, Alice Dunbar Nelson, who's a very fine poet in her own right. So I think they will definitely be inspired and challenged. And I'm hoping when they learn about these women, they will be inspired to do some digging of their own to see what they can find. But you know, the case has always been that the accomplishments of women throughout history in all realms can be very difficult to find. We sort of take it for granted once we know someone. I think there's just so many. I think about the women of hidden figures, not so hidden now. We didn't know that there were women, Black women, scientists, engineers, mathematicians who were involved in the early NASA programs, but we know that now. We didn't know. Now Zora Neale Hurston is required reading in universities, but that's only because Alice Walker dug her out of the history's dustbin. People hadn't heard from her, read anything of hers in years until Alice came across her work and made a point of bringing it back to the fore. So there are still those hidden figures throughout culture, as I said, in every realm, in the arts, in the sciences, you name it. And so these are new women for readers to discover and be inspired by and find resonance with in their stories and in their poems.
That's a really great gift, and I'm very happy to see that coming out. Very happy. Are there any few poems? I know that on your Twitter page, you often post some short poems that you've been writing that have to do with sometimes election, despair, regarding all kinds of things. Is there anything that you're comfortable sharing?
I wasn't prepared to, so I don't have anything handy.
All right.
Right now.
Okay. When you were writing the book about Kamala Harris, what was, let's say, most inspiring? I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but or pivotal in her life that made her who she is.
In addition to what I already said, let's see. Well, while she was in the Flatlands, the family would go to a cultural center, a local cultural center, where she got to hear James Baldwin, many different actors and singers came through. She heard Nina Simone there, got to meet Nina Simone, who she loved because her music was played in their home. And she especially loved her version of To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. And so she was very excited to meet her. And there were also attorneys in the family who were involved in social justice work. And she saw this as a possible road that she could follow because she wanted to help people. And she saw that these were people that people in the neighborhood and the community would call when they had trouble, when they needed assistance. They would call these attorneys. And so she was able to see that was a possible avenue through which she would be able to help people herself. So as I said, everything about her childhood really prepared her for the work that she's doing now.
It's a great title to say, rooted in justice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
I adored the artwork that was done. Laura Freeman was just, when I saw the cover, it just took my breath away. I gasped when I saw it. She just brought all of the elements together in such a perfect way. So I could not be.
Show us a few pictures, or can you show us a few pictures and?
Sure.
Maybe.
Let's see. Oh, remember I was talking about her being out with her parents marching?
Yes.
In the stroller.
I love the story of her saying, "What do you want? Freedom."
Yes. I love that. Oh, and this is when she said that, and her mother was like, "What do you want?" She said, "Freedom."
Right.
So it was great. And then here she's on the bus because she was bused, like all the children in the Flatlands were, to schools as part of the integration push. And she loved it because she got to meet people who spoke different languages as well as people who lived in different places, and she learned, I think, some French from her, one of the early teachers. They learned some songs and, just some very simple things, but these were things that stayed with her. So I love that. I especially love this picture. This was a woman who was sort of a second mother to her. Yeah. Who was
that? Who was her second? Who was that person in her life?
Mrs. Shelton. She ran sort of a daycare and center and after school center, and she had Black heroes on the wall, posters of different Black heroes, and she really took a special interest in Kamala and her sister and gave her a lot of encouragement. And one day Kamala made some, I think, lemon bars that she was so proud of. And she offered one to Mrs. Shelton, and she ate it, took a bite and tried to keep her face straight because Kamala had used salt instead of sugar accidentally. She never let on. She just said, "It's a little salty, but otherwise it's really good. It really tastes."
No wonder she loved her, right?
Yeah. So she made her feel that she could do anything, and I think it's pretty phenomenal. So yeah. Have
you sent a copy to her?
Not yet, but I will at some point for sure.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, yeah, it was great. I do have, let's see, I think I have more poems from Legacy. Oh, let's see who this one is by. This one. Okay. And of course, I don't have the name here because I'm looking for it. 'Tis a noble gift to be brown, all brown, like the strongest things that make up this earth, like the mountains grave and grand, even like the trunks of trees, even oaks, to be like these. God builds his strength in bronze. To be brown like the thrush and lark, like the subtle wren so dark. Nay, the king of beasts wears brown. Eagles are of the same hue. I thank God then I am brown. Brown has mighty things to do. And I borrowed one line from this poem to write. No one chooses his pigment, But note, eagles share the glistening shades of bronze my folk are blessed with. This sun-drenched color is all the rage of generations who's baked on beaches for a bit of this glow. I know it's unseemly to boast. All the same, I wouldn't trade my melanin skin for any other hue.
Great.
And then, let's see, what was this? Poem called What Girls Can Do, in response to a poem called Four Walls. It's all about the walls that hem us in. Mr. Spencer thinks I don't notice the four negative notions he constructs like walls, boxing us in. Girls can't, shouldn't, won't, wouldn't. To him, a girl's only purpose is helping a boy rise to his potential, as if girls are devoid of skill and promise. Ha! Men tried putting Shirley Chisholm in a pen, Mae Jameson and Misty Copeland too. Now me? No. I'll decide what I'll be, what box, if any, I fit in.
Hi, I'm just listening. This has been so awesome. We're so grateful, Nikki. Folks, if you're watching right now, you're watching a conversation with the great Nikki Grimes, author, poet, and author of more than 70 books. Even she's lost count. She thinks it might be 76. And she is, her latest book is about Kamala Harris, Rooted in Justice, a book about aimed at young readers. And we're just listening to her read poetry. Please tag your friends right now. Go out and tag your friends. They can watch this later, and they will learn so much as we're doing as well. We're all having such a great time. Thank you very much. My mom is watching. Ashok is watching and says, beautiful poem, inspiring. We love hearing that. Let me say hi to my mother. Hi, Amma. I feel like I'm just so grateful that you're with me every day, not just on the show, but every single day. Have you been to India, Nikki?
No, not yet.
Okay, yeah. We've got to get you. We got to get you there. Tell me something about for people who find that I sometimes hear this, that I'm not a poetry reader. I don't understand poetry. What are some ways to get over any hesitation that somebody might have about poetry?
Well, if you don't like poetry, it's because you just haven't found the right book yet. There are so many that the market is just so rich in poetry, in styles of poetry and subject matter. There really truly is something for everyone. If you like soccer, there are soccer poems. If you like basketball, there are basketball poems. If you're interested in outer space, there's poetry about that. There are poems really on any given subject, from simple verse to more complex forms. I love tanka, I love haiku, I love sonnets. There are just so many different ways to go with poetry. Look for poetry that you like, that you enjoy, that you get, that touches your heart, that moves you. Then that's the right poetry for you. One of the things I most enjoy getting are letters from young readers who are converts, who write to me and they say, I never liked poetry, or I hated poetry, and then I read, and they tell me what title I just read. And, well, now I love poetry. Poetry is now my hobby, this kind of thing. So it really is about finding that right book for you.
Tell us about your book on Kamala. Tell us about the illustrator, and give her a shout out, Laura Freeman.
Laura Freeman, who is just phenomenal. I just love her work so much. I used her actually also in Legacy. She has a piece there. Her work it's very special, and I was very excited when I found out that she would be the one doing this book. And just her colors are rich, her patterns are rich. Everything is just really, really extraordinary.
Let's go with a close-up. We'll hold it up so you can, if you could hold it up again, that would be great. Lovely. Just look at that.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. Thank you so much. Folks, please follow Nikki at Nikki Grimes 9. We're to find out who the other 8 of them are. And check out her website, nikkigrimes.com. And Jonathan tells us that haiku about motorcycles are called baiku.
Ah, I love that.
And this might be the best comment of all time. Look at this. Love Nikki. We are not worthy, says Kari Dynamo.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring Rose back on the screen. And as we get ready to wrap up here, it has been a long day, I'm sure, for you as well. I'm still struck by the pain that California is going through in so many ways. The pandemic, the financial crisis, the information pandemic, then the forest fires, and then the bad air, and just on and on. How can, the pain that California is going through is also what someone said is, imagine if this was in the West Coast. If this was happening on the East Coast, it would be the lead story every day in the news. But it's not, because there's this kind of East Coast bias to the media. Do you buy into that?
It has been. It's really.
I don't know. I mean, we tend to focus on the things that impact our lives most directly. And so, of course, it's going to be number one in the West because we're dealing with it. I mean, I have a go bag ready. I've already started packing. People ask me every day, how are you doing? Are the fires close to you? And I said, in Southern California, you're always close to the fires. It's no such thing as saying they're far from you, because a fire can, be minutes away, and then it can jump a freeway. And so one minute you're safe, and the next thing you know, you're not. It's in your neighborhood, but 15 minutes ago it wasn't. So it's a very stressful time on top of everything else that we're dealing with. The way I maintain my sanity is to focus on being as prepared as I can. So I'm going around gathering documents and thinking about, what things I absolutely would not want to lose, that I could possibly fit into my one small car, that kind of thing. Making sure, I have a full tank at all times in case I have to take off, that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm doing a lot of praying. I have friends who have already been evacuated from their homes. Friends who are waiting to find out whether or not the fire has hit their neighborhood. Friends who know that the fires have hit their neighborhood, but that their house is still standing and they don't know if it will continue to be so. So I can't think about it day and night. I can't completely get away from it, but as I said, for me, the same thing to do is just to be prepared as much as possible, and then to set it aside and go about my work for the day.
It's so hard for us to imagine that sitting here in New York, but I will say that my cousins who lived in San Diego once had fires near them, and they evacuated. And in a twist of kind of old technology, the only way they knew their house was still standing was they would call the landline, and they had a voicemail, not a machine, but one of those old tape recorders. If that clicked in, then they knew that the house was standing. I mean, can you imagine that pain and the uncertainty of that is so hard to fathom. I want to read some of the comments here. My mother says, "Wow, Nikki, you've written 60 books. It's actually 76, Amma." And Jyoti says, "Thanks also for saying there are hidden figures in so many disciplines that we have yet to discover if we start digging for them." Thank you, Jyoti. Great comment. And Jyoti says, "Please read some more poems, Nikki. Loved the one about dads and daughters and converting pain into love by song and music." So if you have a few minutes, it's totally up to you. As we could be here all night, but we won't be. We want to leave it to you.
Let's see if I have another one.
Over to you.
Yeah, okay.
She's gonna read some, so let's just see what she does.
Okay.
Well, if she can find one, she'll read it. But talk to me while I'm looking.
Okay. Do you like? Are there any contemporary women poets that you like to read that are writing books for children?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
Yeah.
Speaking of different realms, I love the work of Janine Atkins. I just did a book swap with her. She writes on science, poetry,
Mm-hmm.
but scientific subjects, and about women of science who we should know about.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a young reader in my life who is in love with science. So I've got to get some of her books for Isla, because that would just make her day. So she's someone I like to read. But yeah, they're just, oh my gosh, there's so many. There's so many. It's hard to even begin a list of all the poets there are. So one of my all-time favorites, who writes both for children and adults, is Naomi Shihab Nye.
I was just going to ask about her. Actually, I've opened up to a book that I have a poem of her own. Do you know that book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she has a poem in here. It's called "Woman Who Came Before Us." That's I'm sure you know the poem. Yeah.
Her work.
I'll wait for you to find a poem. But if anyone's interested, this is a nice collection, and it has illustrations and the poems, and it has a little biography of the poets in the back as well.
Oh, here's a short one.
Right.
By Angelina Weld Grimke. Twin stars through my purpling pane, the shriveling husk of a yellowing moon on the wane, and the dusk. And I took the line, twin stars purpling through my purpling pane, and wrote a poem called Vanish. I could vanish were it not for the twin street lights outside my window, imitating stars. Without their brightness, you'd peer through half-open blinds and find barely an outline of my blue-black body, skin purpling toward midnight, my image visible, invisible as a glass pane. That was fun. I will find these lines that will just grab me. Like this one in a poem by Ida Rowland. Like crumpled silver in the stinging winds. I didn't need anything else. I've got to do something with that. I wrote a poem called Strength Training. Cancer keeps trying to pin my mother to the mat like a wrestler, but it's no match for her. However crumpled up some weeks feel during chemo, she finds the silver in each day, like the way our family crams in more love for each other. Mom, Dad, my brother, and me. The lesson learned in this fitful squall, with its gray-tinged, stinging slant of rain, cling to the good, despite the crushing winds.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So many great poems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you tell us something about your writing day? Do you have a habit that you write in the morning?
I write in the morning. Yeah, I'm really a morning person. Roll out of bed writing sometimes. I'll wake up and I have an idea just noodling, and I can't really do anything else until I get it down. So the morning is definitely my writing time, which I've been trying to tell my sister for years, and she still will call me in the mornings. It's like, I can't train her. I tried. She lives in Atlanta, so she forgets about the time difference.
Okay.
She calls me in the morning when I'm writing, and I'm like, hi. And she says, oh, is this a bad time? Like, Yes, I'm trying to write. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And do you write until like about noon or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then all the other work to do of the business, the promotional stuff, and emailing with editors and agents, and all the other work that goes along with it. But most of my creative writing is that first part of the day.
Mm-hmm. And you find when you talked about having more time to write, and that's because you're not traveling or you're not doing book signings, book visits, to schools and that kind of.
I'm doing lots of virtual things in places in person, but because I'm not traveling, that's a whole lot of time that I have reclaimed. Because every trip is usually, it's 3 days. It's a day there, the day that I'm working, and then the day that I'm flying home. And really, you lose a week every time you do that. So the not traveling is huge in terms of giving me back big chunks of time. So yeah, it's been great.
And do you find you have more time to make connections with other writers, other colleagues during this?
Not more. I mean, I see them less, obviously, because we usually meet on the road. And so that's one of the reasons I miss travel and I'm missing all my friends. But we stay in touch online, and we email, we Zoom, we do, whatever we can to stay in touch. But I miss my writer friends. That part's been really hard. Yeah. But I will occasionally do a Zoom, and I'll read to them. I'll have them read to me. We'll share, what we're working on, that kind of thing, and catch up. And it's always a sweet time.
That's cool. Yeah. But no, like kind of formal writing groups or sharing groups. You just do that as it comes up with different friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I haven't been involved in a writing group. I can't even remember when. I was part of an arts group for over 30 years that hasn't been meeting since COVID, that met once a month. But it was all artists, all art forms, which one of the things I loved about it, we had, songwriters and visual artists and dancers and just across the spectrum. And everybody sharing their work with their particular medium. And you find that even though the language is a bit different, we all understand one another. There's an awful lot in common. So I miss that group for sure. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you are finding so much time to create new things. It's really wonderful to hear. Here and there in our interviewing different people, we find people who have used this time to be more creative. So that's always a great thing to hear. We're crazy doing this show, but for everybody else, they're finding new ways to express themselves. And I guess we've never had this kind of time that we remember, right? So
and I make cards and I do visual art, and I hadn't painted in over a year until COVID hit. And then one day I thought, well, this would be a good time to get back into it. So I, pulled out my paintbrushes and my drawing pencils and just, worked for a few days just to sort of get my hand back into it and remember, oh yeah, this is how that works. Okay, good. But I've been, making a lot of cards, and I have a lot of fun with that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So these are cards that you can send to friends, keep in touch?
I do. No, I don't use it so much myself. I create stationery sets.
Okay.
Which I give when Christmas, birthdays, whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I make handmade books and journals and that kind of thing. So I'm slowly getting back into that, pulling out my papers. It's messy work, but it's fun.
Well, if you can be outside doing that, I guess that's it helps, right?
Well, I'm not doing that outside because the papers would be blowing everywhere.
Right.
But I get outside to garden, so.
We have a question here from somebody watching. Are there journals and magazines that support women writers of color? Sorry.
Not just women in particular. Well, I mean, you have, Essence and Ebony. But they're Black people in general, but the big focus is on women, certainly in Essence, and journals like QBR. But again, that's not just women; it's Black writers in general. But I can't think of any that specifically are focused on women. But I don't read a lot of journals either. I do much more writing than I do reading. So there may be some out there that I'm just not aware of.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I remember looking at journals like when there were bookstores in New York, there'd be, I think there were some, I don't know where we are now with that, but yeah, some literary journals that did support women writers of color. But I don't know where we stand with that now. I'll bet there are. So I'm hoping.
Quayle does a journal that focuses on women of color. I think that's right. Yeah. So there are some out there.
There's the same person has asked, poetry remains hidden for its often enjoyed in small groups. What spaces can be created everywhere where poets can be supported and nurtured?
Well, if I had the answer to that, I'd be rich. I don't know. I think one of the things that has brought poetry more into sort of the mainstream has been novels and verse, because
especially
I know
for kids, right?
Readers, yes, for young readers especially, there's something about all that white space that makes those books less intimidating than traditional novels would. They see that space and they think, well, I can do that. I can read that much. And so for some kids, a novel in verse is the first novel they've ever completed. So that's been great. And it's a phenomenal tool for literacy. And once teachers and librarians started catching on to that, they started looking for them and asking for them. And I knew there was a sea change when that started to happen, when I went to ALA and found librarians coming into the booths asking, do you have any novels in verse? And I'm like, yes, finally, Tony gets it.
Tell us about
more, we're seeing more of those.
Tell us about Bronx, your Bronx Masquerade.
Bronx Masquerade is a novel in poetry and prose. And it has a companion now, Between the Lines. And they're books that, Bronx covered followed a classroom of high school students over the course of a year. It's written in 18 different voices. One of the most challenging aspects of that book for me was writing poetry in the voices of the characters and not in my own voice. And each one had to be different, as each character was different. But I love the challenge of that. And just telling stories from so many different perspectives. What was great about that is, the teachers who've used it in the classroom, it's become really sort of a staple, especially in middle school and high school. And I hear from teachers who say that this book has changed the culture of their classroom. And that happens because students, from different backgrounds, these are diverse, it's a diverse group of characters, and people are learning about other groups through this book as they read about people they thought they knew or they thought they understood, and they enter into these stories and find out, well, this person is just like me. This experience is just like mine. And they begin to understand that we are more alike than we are different. And so in that way, it has broken down walls. And Between the Lines has come up. It's a more recent book. It deals with different issues. There are stories about various stories about immigration and about social justice system and about teens aging out of the foster care system, a subject I wanted to address because I came up through foster care, and I know that that's a real serious problem for teens who are aging out of the system, who have nowhere to land and are very vulnerable to sex trafficking, to homelessness, to these different things. And so this is a way to not only make young people aware of these things, but also the teachers who serve them to understand these are things that you should be aware of and looking for, so that you can give information to these students as they're coming into a place where they're going to need support, where they're going to need assistance, that kind of thing. And that book, in the back of it, has list of organizations to plug into, and I have more information on my website as well. So those books have given me an opportunity to start conversations and to challenge thinking of one group about another, and as I say, to literally change the culture of the classroom and of classrooms across the country. So I'm really excited about the work that those books have done and are doing.
Yeah, my sons read, I think I once asked them what their favorite book was, and maybe they were in 8th grade, and they said Bronx Masquerade. And I think some of their assignments was to look at a character, one of the voices in there, and try to, explore that. Mm-hmm. So very powerful book, and it's really a testament to you that it's become a staple in so many classrooms. A way for so many different kinds of kids, to approach this, approach reading. Mm-hmm. So keep doing it.
We look for ourselves. We look for our stories. It's the most magical thing that happens when you open a book and you think you have an experience that no one else understands, and you come across this character and you're like, wait, that's my story. And there's just such power and magic and healing in that. It's what I love best about books.
That is, I feel like I'm interrupting a wonderful conversation between two friends, two poets, two writers. And I just want to share all these wonderful links that Mark has been sharing, including Women of Color Poetry.wordpress.com, powerpoetry.org/poem/Dear Women Color. So many comments coming in. Mark really knows his poetry of women of color. So that is great. So if maybe you could do one more poem and we could let you go after that.
Sure. I never say no to that. Let's see.
And we are lucky.
Oh my, it's finding what I want. Which one do I want? Oh my goodness. Well, that's too long. Let's see, try to find the short one.
Folks, you can still tag your friends and family. They can watch the whole thing. This will be live right here as soon as we're done. They'll be back on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So please tag your friends right now. They will benefit as much as we have all benefited from hearing Nikki and her thoughts about writing and her poetry itself, which you're about to hear again.
Okay. This is a poem entitled At Spring Dawn. I won't read the whole thing, but it's by Angela Wells Grimke. And again, I found a line in it that I had to do something with. On the line is, and the red sun shouldered its way up. The poem I wrote in response to that was Faithful. The punctured ozone layer bleeds radiation, and we offer complaint without apology for the years of desecration Earth has suffered. Red is no longer the color of jubilation, but warning. The sun will now allow wildfires to run rampant. Nature shouldered the brunt of man's mistreatment too long. Now it's his turn to pay. Even so, it is the way of creation to be faithful Notice, each dawn the sun comes up.
Great poem, hopeful poem to end on.
Very, very hopeful, and we have to keep that in mind. With everything going on, Nikki, hope is the only thing that will get us through. Before you go, a plug for your book one more time, please, about Kamala Harris, Rooted in Justice. Why should everybody get this for the kids in their lives and their neighbors' kids?
So that they can be inspired to dream their own dreams and to realize that they're only limited by their imaginations. Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful stories and seeds planted in the story of Kamala Harris in pursuing her dreams and in writing her story. And she's still writing her story, and you're still writing your story. So who knows what it will be.
Amazing. Look at that. Even in the goodbye, she speaking in poetry. Thank you so much, Nikki. We want you to stay safe. We want you to stay productive. We want you to have that go bag ready and hope you never have to use it. And we are blessed that you would come and spend a second episode with us. And when you have another book to promote, we hope you'll come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really, what an honor. So really pleasure to hear all your poems.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Nikki. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Rose, another home run. You have amazing friends and writers in your life, and I think we should all have writers in our lives and poets in our lives. So thank you as always for your hard work. I really appreciate it. So I'll let you get back to your evening as well. Folks, follow her, Rose Horowitz, at Rose Horowitz 31 on Twitter, and follow hashtag Women to Follow. Women to Follow is what she has built. And what can we look for in terms? I know you don't have much time to do the Women to Follow because you're doing the COVID shows, but what do you have any specific women that we can look at, or what should we be looking for?
Well, I think one of the women I profiled is doing, well, they're all changing. And so our list, I think now I spoke to Stacey Kratz, who keeps the list on Twitter, and I think it's up to about 1,800.
She's at Hey Kiddo, so you can find the list. But if you just go to hashtag Women to Follow, you can read and find all kinds of cool women who, and the reason you did this is because even women weren't following enough women. And authority, when people are looking for experts, they tend to look at men. And so you worked on that. So that was wonderful.
And one of the women that we had on our show, who was my last woman to follow that I profiled, is Michelle Goodwin, who is a law professor at the University of California, Irvine. And she's since I did that profile, she now has a podcast on Ms., and it's really fantastic. She has great guests, and she's so smart and so well spoken. So I would recommend her podcast.
And and I recommend everybody go back and watch the episode that we did with Michelle Goodwin on this show. It was terrific, and that was a lot of fun. Mark says, "Great job. We need to dream our own." And Mark says, "I love great poetry. I have many poets and spoken word friends. Sree, you should come to a poetry competition sometime soon in Durham, North Carolina, after COVID is over." And Jonathan says, "Great program. Adore Nikki Grimes." Thank you, Jonathan. I should tell you that Jonathan has arranged an incredible guest for us for Friday, and we'll tell you about him in just a minute. Rose, tell us about what's coming up tomorrow first.
We have a special program called Cyber Dating in the Age of COVID in Los Angeles. And we're going to have, I'm trying to remember, I think 4 guests. One of we all know somebody, her name is Michelle Raphael, and she's a writer in Los Angeles, very smart person, who did a cover story for LA Weekly about this same subject, about cyber dating. And she's going to have one of the top people who writes about this. Her name is Julie, no.
Don't worry about the names.
Okay.
We got Michelle, and she wrote a cover story last week, and that's why we invited her. And she's so generous. She said she'd bring her friends.
I saw a cover story. We know her through, Sree's media group, and I reached out to her, and she's bringing some of the people she interviewed, an expert, and then some comics who are seeking love, and they're going to talk about what's happened as they seek love in cyberspace.
So that's Thursday. So today's Wednesday. If you're watching, recording, all this doesn't matter. But Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then on Friday, our guest is going to be Jay Walker. I just realized that I didn't change the headline, but I got everything else right. His photograph is right. The headline is from our episode 2 days ago with Don Porter, the director who made John Lewis Good Trouble. So Jay Walker is Good Trouble. He's a co-founder and organizer of Reclaim Pride Coalition, founding member and organizer of Gays Against Guns, and founding member and organizer Rise and Resist. So this is someone who knows Good Trouble himself, and he'll be with us on Friday night at 9 p.m. And then on Saturday at 9 a.m., we will have Kati Joshi will be with us to talk about her book about white nationalism and the
white Christian
nationalism, yes, and the pain it's inflicting on America. So we will see you for that show as well, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Rose, we'll let you go.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye. Rose is amazing, isn't she? 190 days working with me and putting up with me. And a big thank you to Vandana, who is directing behind the scenes and putting things together. As always, to both of you, thank you for doing this. We are going to say their names as we do on this show every single day. And I do want to thank our sponsors. Before we do that, our sponsors are Nunbelievable, Divinely Delicious Cookies on a Mission, 20% off with the code SREE. We want to thank The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnan Carroll, developer of more than 80 patents at Inventor Charles, guidetoinvention.com. Big thank you to Muckrack Academy for Fundamentals of Social Media, free on-demand certification course. Enroll today at mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Just look at some of these wonderful certificates that people have gotten and the wonderful things that they've said. I'm very, very proud of this. And then big opportunity tomorrow, folks, to listen to the Dalai Lama, to listen to the mayor of LA, to listen to Dr. Tedros, the Director General of WHO, to listen to Renee Fleming, the opera singer. All of this is happening tomorrow from 9 to noon in a free event that my team at Digimentors is producing, oneshared.world. And then at 7 p.m. Eastern, we have the Film Forum from Justice Aid and the Justice Aid Prize. I am hosting that tomorrow night at 7 p.m., followed by cyber dating and an episode of the COVID-19 show. So we have a busy day, as do all of you, I'm sure. We are so grateful to all of you for being here, for supporting us. And now we're going to say their names. This is the cover of Time magazine, where you see Titus Kaffir's incredible portrait of a mother and child. You see the blue glove of the pandemic. And this reminds me that I should talk to Rose and Vandana about inviting Titus Kaffir and talking about all his work. And on the right, you see Larcenia Floyd with her son, George. She would die 2 years almost to the day that he was killed in Minneapolis, murdered on camera in Minneapolis. And now they are buried next to each other in Houston. And now we shall say their names. Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland, Darius Stewart, Samuel Dubose, Janet Wilson, Kaylin Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philando Castillo, Joseph Mann, Terrence Crutcher, Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stefan Clark, Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose, Botham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean, Ahmad Arbery, Brianna Taylor, and George Floyd. And those are not all the names. Those are just some of the names. And our friend Rahajan has put together an incredible list that we read occasionally. And he's working on that about white supremacists who are also, and the people who died killed by white supremacists are also on that list. And so on Saturday morning, we're talking to an expert on white nationalists, Christian white nationalism, and the poison that it is in our world today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing this with your friends and family. Thank you for having us be part of your lives. We have been live for 190 days, 190 every single day, thanks to you and your support. Please share this with your friends and family. My email address is right there. If we can work with you on something or we can help you in any way, please let us know. And some people say to me, Sree, we love your job. You just interview people, and we've interviewed more than 350 people. Yes, it's true, but this is not my job. My job is to do conferences and workshops and talk shows for other people. What you're seeing is an ad for my job. This is just fun thing and meaningful thing that we do because I learned so much. So thank you all. And a reminder that please hit subscribe on youtube.com/Sreenet, youtube.com/Sreenet. And another way for you to keep in touch is to hold up your camera and grab this QR code, and you'll get a gentle WhatsApp alert every time I'm live. It is not, repeat, not a WhatsApp group, but just a gentle alert when I'm live, or just email me and we can let you know also. Thank you very much, everybody. Please stay safe and be kind to your friends and family and everybody around you. We'll see you soon, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, there are more comments coming in. Let's just take a look. Amber says, my kids took the muckrack course. It's awesome. Oh, my God. mrac.co/social. And Amber's been on our show multiple times, and her girls are awesome. And I owe them ice cream, I think, if they ever get to New York after the pandemic. And Jonathan says he's going to talk Good Trouble as well. Mark says, I have some poets for you to follow, like Kalisa Ray, Ayana Jan Albertson, and a host of others. I will add later. Thank you. And what are we doing for episode 200? That's a good question. We want to get ideas. Tell us what do you have? What do you have in mind? And so many other comments coming in. And IBM.TV is hosting a Day of Peace event. Hope you can pop on, Sree, and share your views on peace. I will let you know. And you let me know first. And Amber says she's Mom of All Capes on Twitter, at Mom of All Capes, because mothers are superheroes. The mother of my children is here. I'm locked in the bedroom in this 3 square feet. She is a superhero herself, and allowing me to do this all through this pandemic, only because my family lets me do it. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll say goodnight here, and we'll see you.